We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Boxingego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Terence Bud Crawford says he is waiting and ready for Errol Spence. Hey, start that cab to spin the block. Yes, you heard it. Spend instead of spin. That's what I want to talk about in this video. What up, fight world? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. We unpacked. Now, listen, I'll have a quick disclaimer. Make sure you guys follow along. I wasn't even going to make this video because, frankly, I'm pretty much over it. Like, Errol Spence, Terence Crawford, if they fight, great fight, but it's a lot of back and forth, so I really didn't want to. But I'm going to tell you why I'm making the video. I'm making the video because, for one, I'm the Bruce Wayne of boxing. I'm the Batman of boxing, so I feel it's my obligation for me to talk about pertinent issues or issues that are hot. The amount of people that tag me or DM me this tweet from Terence Crawford also lets me know that I got work to do, and I got to police the city of Gotham. So that's why I'm making this video. But if it were up to me personally, and if I didn't have this due diligence, I probably wouldn't even make a video about that. Moving on, Terence Bud Crawford, he took to his Twitter. He says, at Errol Spence, I'm ready when you want to spend the block. Just giving you a heads up is all. Wink emoji. Now, I got to expand on this because I know what I say because I'm there when I say it. And I've frequently talked about this. Terence Crawford, when he's tweeting, I don't know if he's just in a rush. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. But it's frequently riddled with grammatical and spelling errors. Like, for one, that's just something I always noticed because I happen to be a good speller, right? Beyond that, the reason some people don't get it, they're like, oh, leave him alone. Why are you talking about the Bud Buddies? They're saying, why are you talking about Terence Crawford's spelling? Well, for one, because he's rushing these tweets out and he needs Grammarly. You know what I'm saying? So that's one reason. But the most important reason, because again, I know what I say because I'm there when I say it. The reason I'm talking about typos and these grammatical sentence structure errors and fragmented sentences, the reason is because of Terence Crawford. Let me explain. We unpacked. Terence Crawford, we all know what the obstacles were for the Errol Spence negotiation. And if you paid attention, he was saying that he wanted all these things, transparency. Rachel Donaire had an excellent interview where she talked about it. I made a video reacting to it. Check that video out on the channel. But more importantly, Bud keeps throwing this out that he's his own boss. He moves how he wants. And like, granted, he's only been free from Top Rank for about a year. November 21st, if I'm not mistaken, right around there, that's when he had his last fight with Top Rank and he fought Sean Porter, knocked him out first to stop him. So we're in December. So he's been a free agent for a year and a month, and he just had one fight, and that was David AVANESYAN just a couple weeks ago, December 10th, and this wasn't a fight people were looking for. So you didn't do anything the whole first half of this year, right? But he keeps throwing this out there that he's his own boss and he makes the decisions, and BLK Prime, they're pro fighter and the fighters at the negotiating table. That's a horrible idea, by the way. And I'll talk about that in a future video. So to see these grammatical errors constantly from Terence Crawford in his tweets, it lets me know that he is green and inexperienced when it comes to not being a boxer, but the business of boxing, and in over his head thinking he'll be the right suitor to negotiate these types of deals without help. And it's okay. Like, you know, there's certain things that I don't know. There's certain things that you don't know. That's why we all have certain gifts and traits and expertise on different things. The difference between me is I know my place in this world. You know, I've never been surfing, for example. So I'm not going to talk to a surfer and act like I know more than the surfer, right? We were hearing problems from Errol Spence in that leaked tape. He was saying Crawford don't even trust his own lawyers, right? And it sounds accurate. Terence Crawford, it sounds like he believes he can aid or assist and talk to Al Heyman directly to broker a deal with Errol Spence. But again, this is also the same guy with all these grammatical errors. Now, I had to make this clear because some people think I'm just picking on his spelling. No, the point I'm making is you want to be your own boss. You want to be in the negotiating table. You got to talk the jargon and the language and the linguistics of those people, like Steven Espinoza. You don't see Steven Espinoza of Showtime put out a million tweets and they're ill-advised or tons of misspellings and stuff like that. It's all professional. So if Bud wants to really assume this role, he has to kind of get better. You're talking about spend the block with a D, like spending money for the holidays, instead of spin the block, which shows me a few things. And it shows me issues with phonetics because, again, Terence Crawford is spelling witch like witch on a broom, but he's not talking about hocus pocus. That's the style of witch, right? So that's the reason and the baseline for me saying that. Moving on. Another reason why I didn't want to make a video about this Errol Spence fight is because the whole world on the Frank Martin, Michelle Rivera card heard Errol Spence say a few things. And I want to play that clip for you. Roll the clip. So you just heard from Errol Spence. He specifically said he got a little banged up. Some 14-year-old was joyriding. It was all over the internet. He got in some kind of head-on collision. The guy crashed into him. He says, I seem to have this crazy luck, yada, yada, yada. He also said, as you guys heard, that he was prepared to announce his very next opponent. People speculating who it could be. I'll save that for y'all. So it could be one of a few guys. He said he was prepared to announce, but then he got in this accident of sorts. And he says he felt a little tightness and soreness, so he's not ready to get in camp. He did say he will return in April, May, or June, most likely. So it's all too convenient for Terence Crawford to have waited. Like, keep in mind, Terence Crawford's fight with David AVANESYAN was on December 10th. And on December 10th is when he secured the victory. So the next week was the Michelle Rivera Frank Martin fight where Errol Spence revealed this. Why did Crawford, who had already completed his avocado test and beat David AVANESYAN, why did he wait a week until Errol Spence gets on Showtime Boxing, national TV, and he's telling you he had an opponent scheduled and he was willing to announce prior to this accident, but that set things back? So it just sounds like a setup. It sounds like a setup so the Bud Buddies can now say, oh, he needs to cancel whatever fight and move on and just fight Terence Crawford if he's serious. But the world doesn't work like that. If they already have his fight done, which is, if he said he was about to announce, what does that tell you? They had his fight done. So why would he stop his plans to deal with someone who bounced on you in the negotiations, your very last negotiation that you had? And then on top of it, his team started blaming Al Heyman and doing videos or posts or whatever and saying we left Errol Spence in the dust. I mean, so to be honest, this is part of the problem with how Terence Crawford handles stuff. Errol Spence also said that in the interview. He said the way he went about it was not the right way, and he wasn't professional about how, if he would have just said, hey, I'm fighting David AVANESYAN, I can't pass this up, 10 milli to fight. He did another interview where he said 10 milli to fight a bum. That was Errol Spence's word. But anyway, basically 10 million for some easy work for a tune-up. He said he wouldn't have hated. He would just been like, okay. And then they start working on his next line of business or whatever. But that's not what Crawford did. So for Crawford to just randomly pop back up after Errol Spence said he already had his next fight and he was ready to announce, that seems a bit weird, and it seems all too convenient. Because again, I know dumb fans, they're going to come out and say, oh, who cares? Whoever you were going to fight, scrap that. But what if they have signed contracts? It doesn't work like you just scrap it because Terence Crawford decides to tweet. The game don't wait. So people are doing the same thing with Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis. They were both supposed to do interim fights. Tank announced his interim fight with Hector Luis Garcia January 7th at the Capital One Arena in DC. They're already selling tickets. Tank is in training camp. Ryan waited after this was already done. For whatever reason, there's something up with his interim fight. He doesn't want to have an interim tune-up fight. And he says, hey, let's just F that. Let's just go straight into the Tank fight. That is beyond ridiculous, and it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of because, again, the game don't wait, and that's not how things work. He said he was fighting. You said you were fighting someone else. And then now, because for whatever reason, it didn't work for Ryan Garcia to get a tune-up, Tank is supposed to just stop what he's doing, you know? And furthermore, with the Crawford situation, this is what myself and others had a problem with, how Crawford handled it. There was an article that came out and it says the growing concern from Errol Spence's side that Terence Crawford and his team are no longer on board after like 6 months of negotiating. So at the end of the day, we found out later that night why. And that was because he was fighting on BOK Prime, unbeknownst to Steven Espinoza, Team Spence, Al Heyman, and the people negotiating. They thought he was pretty well cornered and this was the best move and the most money that Crawford could make. And then he pulled a rabbit out the hat and went to BOK Prime. Why on earth would Errol Spence forego any plan to deal with the person who just burnt you before? That's like sleeping with a chick and then she has an STD and burns you, and then you go to Planned Parenthood or the doctor, you go to the clinic to get it cleared up, and then you go back to that chick 2 weeks later. I mean, what's the point of that? So if you get burnt, you get burnt. And hopefully you learn from it. So I'm not going to put and expect Errol Spence nor Al Heyman, PBC, Showtime to take that serious. Because here's the thing. Crawford just tweeted he's ready, spin the block, blah, blah, blah. Again, ask yourself questions. Why he didn't say anything before the Frank Martin fight where it was revealed on that telecast that Errol Spence was already ready to announce his opponent and they already had something in line for him. 2, why go to Twitter? You said you talked to Errol Spence about a $50 million hedge fund and fire sticks. Why announce it to Twitter when you can get in contact with PBC and Errol Spence behind the scenes and let it be known? So that, to me, that looks like it's for show, that you have to show the world that you're trying to wait for him to spin the block. It's like when people want to donate out of the kindness of their heart, allegedly, to a homeless person, and then they're filming the exchange and it's unnatural. You're like, hey, get this, film this. You know, if you really wanted to just give a homeless person money and it wasn't staged or anything like that, you could just give them money. You don't have to film it and post it. It would be one thing if somebody like posted it and caught you on camera. Like, oh, did you see Michael B. Jordan gave this homeless person money? But when Michael B. Jordan sets it up and makes it, you know, kind of a public issue, you have to kind of question that intent. And that's the same thing with Terence Crawford's tweet. Like, if you really want to fight Errol Spence, why take to Twitter? Why post it? Why not try to, behind the scenes, reach out to the same people you were already in concert with, trying to make the fight before you bailed out on them, right? Again, the $1 million question is, why would PBC necessarily, I'm not saying I don't work for them, so I don't know what their take is. But what I'm saying is not a foregone conclusion that they want to do business with the person that just wasted their time. Because even though he's saying I'm ready to spin the block, he already said something similar. He said, I agreed to all their BS and they were dragging their feet. And then I surprised them by fighting David AVANESYAN. So what's to stop? He says that he agreed already, right? So what's the difference here? What's the difference now? And how do we know that Terence Crawford is serious about actually signing now, since he said he already agreed but somehow didn't sign? So I'm not convinced that this fight will happen. A lot of people are thinking this is a good sign. I mean, we see Shakur Stevenson or whoever calling out 1 million people online, but that's not the business of boxing. That's not getting the fights done. For whatever reason, Shakur Stevenson, he can call the people out on Twitter, but business is not handled like that. And at the end of the day, and I'm not knocking him for calling out, he can do whatever he wants. But what I'm saying is, has any of the fights that he's called for. He said he'll fight Isaac Cruz, Frank Martin. Do you think any of these fights will be next for Shakur Stevenson? So I'm not really particularly impressed with Twitter talk. Somebody posting that they want this, because again, there's so many different layers to the business and getting a fight done, and Twitter is not typically how fights are going to come into fruition. So holla at me when we get some actual traction. Until then, I don't think it's right for Errol Spence to be expected to stop his plans. He already has all these mandatories. It sounds like he has his fight lined up, and he's supposed to stop because Terence Crawford got on Twitter 2 weeks after his fight and said this. They literally asked him after his David AVANESYAN knockout, and he said, hopefully it happens, something to that effect. He wasn't talking about spinning the block and all this stuff like that. Now he is. So I'll keep you guys posted. We unpacked. Introducing Super Thanks. Right here on the official Boxingego YouTube. Super Thanks allows you, the viewers, to show a little bit of extra gratitude, which enables me as a full-time content creator to push out the content you need in the world of boxing. Underneath all the videos, you will see a heart with the $sign in it. You can enter any amount that you find suitable as a super thanks. A brand new, interactive, and colorful way to get your comments highlighted and noticed by not only myself, but other people on the YouTube platform. Super thanks, a unique and cool way to show and applaud us full-time content creators. Hopefully you guys enjoy the content. Super thanks. The future is now. The Hibernation 5s by Kenichi Bear. Hybrid gaming and lifestyle headphones. Out of the box, you can connect to any console or PC. Bluetooth ready with a low latency USB adapter, color RGB, and extreme bass mode. The Hibernation 5s adjust to you. Whether you need a gaming, travel, gym, or lifestyle headphones, the Hibernations got you covered. The new Hibernation 5s, link in the description. Customize the way you hear the world. Welcome to the nation. Are you tired of your YouTube videos not getting any views? Well, consider TubeBuddy. I've used TubeBuddy for years to scale up my YouTube channel. Now we're sitting over 200,000 subscribers. TubeBuddy is a browser extension that offers a ton of built-in productivity and time-saving services to take your channel to the next level. Use my link in the description to get started with TubeBuddy and level up your channel faster. We working.